Hello students, the title of this lecture is The Voyage of Liberty. In the previous lecture, as you know, we talked about Crusoe's slavery and his attempt to escape, and we said that Crusoe has succeeded to escape the miserable life of slavery and gain his liberty again. He has done it by the help of a boy called Zeri, who promises to be faithful, obedient, and do whatever Crusoe wants. They sail towards no specific place. Their aim is just to be away from the eyes of the Moors. After several days of sailing, Crusoe and Zeri have come close to the barbarous shore, where they have been frightened by the barking of wild creatures, about which they know nothing. Let us see today what they are going to do and how they are going to escape the danger of these creatures. Students, please open your books on page 20, the last paragraph, in which Crusoe says, Zeri was dreadfully frightened, and indeed so was I too. But we were both more frightened when we heard one of these mighty creatures come swimming towards our boat. We could not see him, but we might hear him by his blowing to be a monstrous, huge, and furious beast. Zeri said it was a lion, and it might be so for aught I know. But poor Zeri cried to me to weigh the anchor and row away. Crusoe here tells us that at night he and Zeri come towards the shore, and once they hear the barking and roaring of the wild creatures, they become very afraid. Zeri begs him not to stop and to sail away from the shore, since it is dark and the boy is dreadfully afraid of them, especially when he notices that one of them comes swimming towards their boat. Students, would you please go to page 21, the second paragraph. Be that as it would, we were obliged to go on shore somewhere or other for water, for we had not a pint left in the boat. When and where to get it was the point. Zeri said if I would let him go on shore with one of the jars, he would find if there was any water and bring some to me. I asked him why he would go, why I should not go, and he stay in the boat. The boy answered with so much affection as made me love him ever after. Says he, if wild mans come, they eat me. You go away. Well, Zeri, said I, we will both go, and if wild mans come, we will kill them. They shall eat neither of us. Students, as you see here, the speech of Zeri has a lot of grammatical mistakes, since English language is not the first language of this poor boy, and Crusoe here is narrating what he has said using his own words, using the words of this poor boy. The narration of Crusoe here shows that he and the boy Zeri are obliged to make anchor and go on the coast, since they need to drink. So they go on shore seeking fresh water. The big problem is how to bring water safely. The place is not safe, wild creatures are everywhere, and it is difficult to avoid their danger. Zeri has surprised Crusoe by suggesting that he will go on shore and bring water instead of Crusoe. Crusoe, who seems astonished, asks the boy the reason. Zeri innocently replies that he is ready to be killed by the wild creature instead of Crusoe. The poor boy shows that he is indeed sincere, helpful, and a good supportive. He is ready to sacrifice himself to save Crusoe. Zeri, whose mother language is not the English, has succeeded to communicate with Crusoe by his poor language and by his kindness. He proves that he is a good friend. But it seems that the relationship between Crusoe and this poor boy is not a friendship. Crusoe seems to treat him as a slave, as he himself shows in the next narration. So I gave Zeri a piece of rusted bread to eat and dram out of our patron's case of bottles. Crusoe here behaves as a master, treating his slave. When Zeri shows that he is ready to go and bring water, Crusoe immediately gives him a piece of bread to eat and something to drink. He has given him this as a reward. He has rewarded him. So Crusoe does not treat Zeri as a friend, but he deals with him as a slave. And later we are going to see more evidences that prove our own analysis. Students, we are still discussing page 21. Now the third paragraph, line number 2, in which Crusoe says, I saw him come running towards me. I thought he was pursued by some savage or frightened with some wild beast, and I ran forward towards him to help him. But when I came nearer to him, I saw something hanging over his shoulders, which was a creature that he had shot, like a hare, but different in color and longer legs. However, we were very glad of it, and it was very good meat. But the great joy that the poor boy came with was to tell me that he had found good water and seen no wild mans. Here, Crusoe says that he keeps sitting in his boat, waiting for Zeri, who goes on shore to bring water. Suddenly he is shocked by Zeri, who comes running towards him. Crusoe thinks that the boy has been chased by some wild creatures, so he rushes to help him, but he is surprised to see Zeri carrying a huge animal that he has shot. That he has killed. Moreover, he brings with him fresh water and tells Crusoe that he has seen no wild creatures on the shore. Now, page 22, the last paragraph. Crusoe here continues his narration, saying that in the morning he and Zeri come close to a land where they have a break. Zeri, who seems more alert than Crusoe, more alert, it means more aware of things around him. So Zeri, who seems more alert than Crusoe, whispered in Crusoe's ear, telling him that he has seen a beast sleeping nearby. So it is better to leave the place, as Crusoe himself narrates here in line number 7. I looked where he pointed and saw a dreadful monster indeed, for it was a terrible great lion that lay on the side of the shore, under the shade of a piece of the hill that hung as it were a little over him. Zeri, says I, you shall go on shore and kill him. Zeri looked frightened and said, me kill, he eat me at one mouthful he meant. Being assured that there is a wild creature lies on the side of the shore, Crusoe orders Zeri to go and shoot him. Zeri, as Crusoe narrates, refuses, telling Crusoe that he is afraid of being attacked and eaten by this wild beast. Students, as you see here, we depend on Crusoe's narration in knowing the events of the novel and in getting information about other characters like Zeri. Zeri here is described by Crusoe as being dreadfully afraid, and in the previous scene he is also described as being very afraid to go on shore and bring water, but later we know that he is the one who goes on shore and brings water, and he has succeeded to hunt an animal. So as you see here, there is a contradiction in Crusoe's narration, which we are going to discuss later, at the end of this lecture. Now, page 23, in which Crusoe narrates the violent battle between him and the wild beast, saying, I took the best aim I could with the first piece to have shot him into the head, but he lay so with his leg raised a little above his nose that the slugs hit his leg about the knee and broke the bone. He started up growling at first, but finding his leg broken, fell down again, and then got up upon 3 legs and gave the most hideous roar that ever I heard. I was a little surprised that he had not hit him on the head. However, I took up the second piece immediately, and though he began to move off, fired again and shot him into the head, and had the pleasure to see him drop and make but little noise, but lay struggling for life. The narration of Robinson Crusoe here shows that Crusoe himself fights the wild creature. He tries several times to shoot him, and it seems that he has succeeded to do it, but the wild beast is still alive. So Crusoe has shot him into the head as he narrates, but the latter is wounded and not killed. So let us see who's going to kill him. Then Zeri took heart and would have let him go on shore. Well, go, said I. So the boy jumped into the water, and taking a little gun in one hand, swam to the shore with the other hand, and coming close to the creature, put the muzzle of the piece to his ear. The muzzle, it means the knife of the gun, and shot him into the head again, which dispatched him quite. Crusoe's narration here shows that Zeri, who is described as being very afraid of the beast, jumps into the water carrying a gun with him, and he immediately kills the wild beast. His fight with this creature seems to be more dangerous than that of Crusoe, since the poor boy fights him in the water and he comes close to him and stabs him. He gives him a stab by the muzzle of the gun and then shoots him. While the battle of Crusoe seems to be different. Crusoe fights the wild creature on the land, and he does not come close to him. He prefers to shoot him rather than killing him by the knife of the gun. Crusoe's contradiction. Listening to the narration of Robinson Crusoe, in which he portrays a violent battle between him and the wild creature, we become aware that there is a contradiction. Zeri is described as a poor boy afraid of the wild creature. At the beginning of being nearby the barbarous shore, Crusoe tells us that Zeri begs him not to stop and not to go on shore. Later, Crusoe's narration shows that Zeri is the one who goes on shore and brings water and food. He seems not afraid. He himself has killed a huge animal. In the next scene, Crusoe again contradicts himself. His narration shows that Zeri refuses to fight the beast, and he himself fights the wild animal or the wild creature, Crusoe. Moreover, Crusoe portrays the battle between him and the beast as a very violent and difficult one. While later we know that it is the poor boy Zeri who has succeeded to kill the beast, not Crusoe. The contradiction of Crusoe here shows Crusoe's sense of manliness which he tries to prove. Crusoe is dominated by his sense of masculinity or manliness. He tries to show that he is a mature man, and he is not afraid to make adventure or even to kill a beast. Crusoe's sense of manliness leads him to give more importance to himself and to reduce or to ignore the efforts of others. This is why he has ignored the bravery of Zeri. Students, thank you for your listening.